In this video, you will learn details that speak, conversations, dialogue, and speech. Why dialogue, you ask? Well, there's three big reasons why. Number one, it sticks with us, it moves the plot, and it gives us insight about characters or a situation. If you move over to the right, I have a thinking map, and I put why show speech. So if we go over here, okay, my first reason is show the dialect or speaking style of a character. What this means is that you can understand if you're showing the dialect or speaking style of a character through dialogue, you can get to understand the character a little bit better. Okay, understanding what his tone of voice is. It gets your tone and your voice through the paper as well. Another reason why we should use speech is show the interaction between the characters. When you have two characters making a conversation, or possibly more than one, you can show the interaction between them. You can see how they are handling each other. Can you tell that they're good friends, or can you tell there might be something in between them that's bothering them? Another reason why to show speech is the words help to move the plot or story forward. A reason we use conversation is we always want our story to be moving forward because that engages our reader. We want the reader to be not stuck, but wondering what's coming next. And one way to do that is with conversation. The next thing on the thinking map is reveal clues about characters' beliefs, values, or intentions. Instead of just saying, this character doesn't like dogs, maybe your character says something, shouts out something that makes the reader infer that he or she doesn't like dogs. And my final one on my thinking map is it reveals important or famous lines. Okay, sometimes people are quoted saying things and that quote sticks with them forever. Think about Martin Luther King. Okay, when he gave his speech, people quoted what he said. They said, "I have a dream." And that speech has been around for many, 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 many years. This page is just a quick review on how quotation marks are used. If you remember, at the beginning of the year, we studied quotation marks. We talked about how there is a tag. Okay, the tag is who is saying what's in the quotes. Okay, then you have over here, you have what somebody has quoted over here. Okay, notice that the quotations, let's erase over here so you could see this a little bit. Okay, notice that the quotations go exactly around the exact words what the person says. Okay, in here the tag comes at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, it says Elijah said, comma, quote, capital, because this is a sentence, Sam is a liar, period, quotation marks. The next example is in the middle. At first, you have exactly what the person says. Quote, I am not, comma, quote, the tag goes right in the middle. Sam fired. Back. Comma, then he has comma. This is the continuation of the sentence, so that's why this is not capitals. But I know who is. Period, end of sentence, quote. The next one is you can put tags at the end of the sentence. Okay, oh, really? That's what Elijah said. It's in quotes, okay? Puts his comma, it's not the end of the sentence, it's the beginning. The end of the sentence is going to be where the tag is. And then here's the tag. Elijah responded, period. That's the end of the sentence. This is just a brief review on where quotation marks go. If you want to know if you're having trouble with that, please ask Mrs. Sword, and I will help you a little bit more with that. Okay, Now we have talked about why conversations are important in writing, and we reviewed using quotation marks. So now we're going to look at examples of what this might look like. The example first is I started out with quotations. The example right here is example 1. Okay, let's erase that. So that one. And it's talking about where the author quoted, "Where did you first get Sounder?" the boy asked. This is from the story Sounder by William H. Armstrong. The author could have said something like, instead of saying, "Where did you first get Sounder?" he could have said, "Sounder was found in a field." Instead, he decided to bring in the character, let the reader understand the character a little bit more, and make the character speak. Where did you first get Sounder? Another example, example number 2 down here, is they answered, "Why be scared of a hat?" This is Antonio de Saint-Exupéry from The Little Prince. He decided to have they, which tells me that that's a group of people, said, "Why be scared of the hat?" instead of saying all the children were scared of the hat. He changed that into a conversation, into a character making conversation by saying they answered, "Why be scared of a hat?" On the next page, you're going to go over, I've pulled an insert from my paper that I'm writing, and I'm going to show you how I turned one of my paragraphs into having a little bit of conversation. Here's a paragraph I pulled from my paper. It's at the beginning of my paper. And this I'm going to be talking about adding conversation to a paragraph. I didn't have any conversation in this paragraph at all. So my paragraph starts out with, "My dad is an incredible human being, always has been. He is the oldest of 3 brothers and grew up with minimum bells and whistles. As he states, a pretty basic life. He has told me numerous stories of how at times things were hard, mostly because of sufficient funds." So I stopped right there as a writer, and I said, okay, he is, I'm telling my reader that he knows that he told me these things. So why not a perfect opportunity to put in some kind of conversation? Let the reader understand, get to know my father a little bit better. So I stopped right there and I said, okay, I'm going to add, "I can hear him now." That kind of lets the reader understand that he is talking to me. So then I put in my conversation. Right here is what my dad said. "Amy, dear, we did not go out to eat much when I was young, and if we did, it was a very special occasion." Calmly, my dad would say, in the voice I still love to hear to this day. So I put in there, I chose "Amy, dear," because that's what my dad always says, "Amy, dear." And that lets my reader know that my dad was obviously a very kind, or is very kind, very nice man. I also said down here, instead of saying "my dad would say," I noticed that I said "calmly said." And then I added a little bit more detail and said, "in the voice I still love to hear to this day." Then I decided I'm going to add a little bit more conversation. I'm going to put my reaction. I want the reader to understand me a little bit. So I put, "I would look at him puzzled and ask, 'Why we do?'" Letting the reader understand, as a little girl, I didn't understand. Why wouldn't his life be the same as that ours is today? What would be the difference? I also noticed that I did, instead of saying "I said" or "I asked," I looked at how I said that at him. So it lets the reader understand that I was kind of confused. Obviously, by my conversation, you can tell I'm confused, but I also wanted to add a little bit of detail. I really wanted my reader to understand that I was confused. Then I continued on after that, and I said he would continue to tell me how his father had a job, but didn't make the money he himself was so blessed to make. He would supply me with the examples of what they did instead, and make sure I understood that it was still a great life, but that he wanted better for us. As I reflect back on these and many other stories and events that happened in both our lives, I see the perseverance he had to have to get where he is today. So that was all added to my paper. This was in my original paper. It actually just went from here to here. Okay? So I added, after I just decided to add conversation, all this came to me afterwards, which, in my opinion, I think sounds a lot better. Just because I added that little piece of conversation, it made me revise my paper even in a different way afterwards. Now it's your turn. You have two choices. You can pick a conversation you already have and revise that. Some of you might have already put conversation in your paper and you can just revise that and think about what I did, and maybe you could try some of those strategies on with your conversation that you already have going inside your paper. And then the second thing is, if you didn't choose, if you haven't put any conversation in your paper, choose a place in your paper like I did and ask yourself, how can I change this to a conversation? Is this somewhere where somebody would have been talking? Remember, we're writing personal narratives. So personal narratives, there's a lot of conversation going on. You could even have a conversation between yourself. You could be having a conversation if this is what was going on inside your head. After watching this video, you should be able to add correct dialogue to your paper. Go give it a go. If you're confused on any part, remember you can go back and rewatch the video and to find out what you're missing or to have a better understanding. Of course, I am always here to answer questions as well.